Good evening. Well, it is evening. It's 6 o'clock, so I guess that's evening. Got some things to discuss. Um, Before we do, just please, if you could, comment, like, share, subscribe. It would really help us out a great deal. And you want to turn on notifications just in case we hit something interesting and you want to hear that. That would be much appreciated. Thank you. So, getting into the very first thing, uh, U.S. immigration crackdown. Near Obama's house. This is getting interesting.
Department of Homeland Security deported several people from Nantucket, Massachusetts, as part of an operation that U.S. immigration and customs enforcement officials were carrying out on the island. ICE is removing illegal aliens from all states, communities, and work sites across this country, DHS posted on X. A video from the Nantucket Current showed several people in life vests sitting on a U.S. Coast Guard boat, along with officers wearing what appeared to be bulletproof vests. If you are here illegally, use the CBP Home app to self-deport. If not, you will be arrested and deported without a chance to return, the Post read. Neither ICE nor Nantucket police immediately responded to requests for comment. The region was previously targeted by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who unexpectedly sent a plane carrying dozens of migrants to Martha's Vineyard in 2022 amid escalating tensions between Republicans and Democrats over immigration. The arrests come as the Trump administration's deportation blitz across the country faces serious legal challenges. Local reports also said that ICE officers made several arrests on both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, which have also happened to be popular vacation destinations for the last few Democratic presidents, including former President Barack Obama and Joe Biden. When a 20-year-old from Venezuela was arrested last week at an immigration courthouse in New York, it was the first reported instance of a public school student in the city being apprehended by federal officials since the start of President Donald Trump's second term. It also signaled a shift in strategy by immigration authorities who are intent on expediting deportations. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers last week began standing inside and outside immigration courts across the United States in an effort to detain certain migrants who are appearing for scheduled hearings. Immigration lawyers said ICE officers from San Diego and Los Angeles to Boston and Miami were targeting migrants shortly after their cases were dismissed by judges. Government lawyers are requesting that the cases be dismissed in order to place the migrants in expedited deportation proceedings.
I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country and fast. To expedite removal of the Tren de Aragua and other savage gangs, I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of, listen to this, 1798. That's an old one. You have to go back that far because as we've grown and grown, our politics and politicians have become weaker and weaker. Our laws don't mean anything. It's so bad what's happening to our country, and we're becoming a very unsafe.
Well, we'll save everyone the rather long speech, which was at that point a campaign speech, and we'll just go ahead right on to this next piece. This is also kind of long, so we'll cut it up short. We'll just watch enough of it to grab the idea of it, and you can store this in the back of your mind as we move along.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is James Covington. I am the Regional Communications Director for ICE Northeast. More importantly, today, I am the Communications Director for ICE Boston. Thank you for coming out to our press conference announcing the results of a recent enhanced immigration targeted operation. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Acting Director of ICE, Todd Lyons.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, I just want to take a special thank you to thank our partners. Without partnership, this is really key to the success of the ICE mission and DHS as a whole. To U.S. Attorney Leah Foley, the Boston Field Office Director Patricia Hyde, Special Agent in Charge Michael Crow, Mike Manning, Customs and Protection Boston, Scott Reed of the ATF, Matt O'Brien at Diplomatic Security Service, Stephen Bello, DEA, Brian Keyes, U.S. Marshals, and the men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol that are with us every day. These brave men and women have worked tirelessly to arrest approximately 1,500 criminal aliens and illegal aliens during Operation Patriot. In the beginning of May, ICE and its federal and state partners launched a whole of government effort to remove dangerous criminal aliens from all over the Commonwealth. I'll let our Boston Field Office Director give you the specific numbers of Operation Patriot, but what I can tell you is this, that hundreds of brave officers and agents risk their lives every day here in the Commonwealth to remove dangerous criminals from Boston, Worcester, Springfield, Lowell, Lawrence, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and several other communities across the Commonwealth. Significant amount of the criminal aliens that are arrested by the teams were drug traffickers, sex offenders, murderers, and foreign fugitives trying to evade justice in their home countries. It's long past time to remove these dangerous criminals from our communities. What we need to do is prevent them from terrorizing family, friends, and our neighbors. But the bottom line is that ICE and its federal partners wouldn't be able to conduct large-scale operations like this without the partnership you see up here. But more importantly, if sanctuary cities would change their policies and turn these violent criminal aliens over to us into our custody, instead of releasing them into the public, we would not have to go out to the communities and do this. Boston's my hometown, and it really shocks me that officials all over Massachusetts would rather release sex offenders, fentanyl dealers, drug dealers, human traffickers, and child rapists back into the neighborhoods. You know, all too often in Massachusetts and all over the Commonwealth, people use ICE's operations as a talking point, which it shouldn't be. It should be public safety all around. But instead, brave men and women of ICE, CBP, ATF, DEA, Diplomatic Security Service, and the U.S. Marshals have to go out and pick up some of the most horrible criminals that are roaming free in Massachusetts. These are just some of them. A child sex offender that was previously deported that was released by a local agency but was back living across the street from a playground. A sex trafficker that was arrested for raping a child that was re-released back into the community. A habitual drunk driver who, in the midst of his drunk driving, kidnapped a child. Theft from, we had one person that was previously deported that was stealing from disabled senior citizens. Not only that, but they got several convicted murderers, rapists, spouse abusers, child abusers, and drug traffickers. You can see their mugshots, which are all up here on the photo, and I really want everyone to see that. Because not only did they enter our country illegally, but they were released back into our community by elected officials and sanctuary jurisdictions that did not want to turn these individuals over to ICE. I really want everyone to see their faces and know what's going on. So make no mistake, ICE is going to keep doing this. This operation proved that we need to be more. While this operation was going on, and the brave men and women from all these agencies were out conducting operations, more criminal aliens were being released into the community. We did this already once. We saw a large number in a week time, but that just showed we needed to come back. And we're going to keep coming back because ICE is going to make sure that we keep our community safe and keep our neighborhood safe from these sex offenders and these criminal aliens. But not only are we going to keep the community safe, my goal is to keep my officers and agents and also the criminal aliens safe, because we'd rather arrest them in a local jurisdiction where it only takes 2 officers or agents and they can turn them over to us in a safe environment, rather than us going back out into the community and then these criminal aliens be released back in our neighborhoods. So with that, I'll turn it over to U.S. Attorney Leah Foley.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for being here. As you know, the top priority of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So that was the gist of it. And they have all of these illegal aliens that they're arresting for doing these horrible things, living right across the street from a child's playground when he's already been convicted of child rape. How did this person get back out into the street? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I mean, I could think of several harebrained theories that have absolutely nothing to back them up. For instance, and again, I'm not saying this is a fact. This is just a totally off the cuff thought. What if there are certain people in this country that wish to maintain a certain amount of power, a certain amount of pull in our government, and so that they want these bad people, they want them in our country because those bad people are part of the voting base that's going to keep them in power once those illegal aliens have the right to vote. Now, understand this, there are people coming into this country that hate us. I've said it before in another video, and it's true. There are people that are coming into this country that absolutely hate Americans simply because they're Americans. Now, this is the important part. The people who want those people to have the right to vote, they don't care about your welfare. They don't care about your rights or their responsibilities. They just don't care. They would rather have criminals voting for them than, good. And understand this, not all Americans are honest people. Not all natural born Americans are honest people, believe me. There was a point in my life when I was younger, I fractured a few laws. Not good, I shouldn't have done it, but I did. That's a prime example. Not every natural born American is a good person. But the people that are coming into this country with the intention of preying on innocent people, those people are the focus of this video. I don't care what your political party is. I don't care what your belief on free open borders is, although I do believe that's a crackpot idea. Completely crackpot. You think about it. If anybody can come in, then anybody will come in. And I said, and it's true, that there are people coming into our country that absolutely hate Americans just because they're Americans. They also hate Jews. Now, there are people that have been in my life that were Jewish. I care a great deal for them, love them dearly, and I don't want to see anything bad happen to them. Just because we don't share the same idea on who the Messiah is in the Christian faith doesn't mean that I look down on them at all. Hardworking, respectable people. I'm not saying all Jews are that way. I'm just saying the ones I know. I think that there are people in this country that really need to rethink what they want as far as leaders of this country. And actually, they're not supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to be political servants in this country. They work for us. We don't work for them. So we're the leaders. We're the leaders. They want us to forget that. Don't you ever forget that. We're the leaders, the people. Now, as far as these individuals coming into the country, they come in, they do what they want, when they want, they disappear into the crowd. It has to stop. Now, there's another one here that's kind of interesting. This is an advisor to a president or an ex-advisor. Let's see what she has to say.
For more, let's bring in our former Homeland Security Acting Chief of Staff under President Trump and now with the Heritage Foundation, Laura Reese. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
When you look at what DHS is now trying to do, they're focusing on trying to get 300,000 migrant arrests and deportations a day. Do you think that's achievable?
Well, it needs to be done for sure. And really, the deportations are the measure. That is what President Trump ran on during his campaign. That is what he has promised, and that's what Americans voted for and continue to support. It's also one of the reasons why self-deportations are so important. Yes, arrests lead to detention, which tends to lead to deportations, but it is really about the deportation numbers. And it's also why Congress needs to hurry up and pass that reconciliation bill to give ICE the added resources to carry out its job.
Yeah, and you mentioned it was such a priority for the president during the campaign. He certainly was focused on it when he came in on day one. What have been some of the impediments? You mentioned what the House is trying to, the Congress is trying to do to give ICE more funding, more tools. What has stood in the way of getting to that number?
Well, it's been a couple things. One are a very activist judges at the U.S. District Court level across the board have tried to thwart the Trump policy changes and enforcement of the law. And second, we've got activists out in the communities who are tipping off alien populations that ICE is coming, threatening ICE agents. And so all of this has an impact on ICE's ability to enforce the law and protect Americans.
The court decisions some have ruled for the president, some or for the administration, some have ruled against it. The most recent one allowed the administration to cancel temporary protective status for 4 different nations. It probably will lead to about 500,000 people no longer having that status that would allow them to stay in the country. How consequential was that decision, and do you see the administration expanding that to other nationalities?
Well, it was an important decision, but it's also an easy case. The Secretary of Homeland Security has discretion to give immigration parole to an alien and has discretion to end it. And so this isn't really a role for the federal court system. And frankly, many more of these other cases involving temporary protected status should be thrown out because the statute clearly says there's no judicial review for this type of case. So we should expect to see more of this. But some of these judges are giving away the game. They're saying that they don't want 500,000 or more aliens illegally here to suddenly be deportable and deported. Well, blame the Biden administration for creating this situation in the first place. But secondly, it is the Trump administration's job to enforce the law, and that's what he's doing.
The Supreme Court is probably going to hear a lot more immigration cases. Which ones are you watching? How much authority do you think they will confirm or maybe reject for the administration?
I think 2 big ones will be the birthright citizenship case. The Trump administration properly scoped the executive order that President Trump signed to say that if you're going to have a child born here, that child will only be given citizenship if the parent is either a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. That's consistent with past case law from the Supreme Court. So I do suspect that the Trump administration can win on that. The other interesting one will be on using the Alien Enemies Act with respect to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. And do those facts fit the statute that Congress passed long ago?
Another role for the Department of Homeland Security is FEMA, and we are entering the Atlantic hurricane season. There have been concerns about cuts to forecasting, cuts to response. Do you think that FEMA has enough to do its job?
Well, like so many other departments in the government, as we've seen with DOGE, there has been bloated bureaucracies, wasteful spending, and FEMA, like other agencies, need to be trimmed so that it is fully efficient. But the larger issue with FEMA is also shifting responsibility, planning response back to the states and localities. Frankly, they've become too reliant on the federal government to spend taxpayer money, particularly in response, yet it's the states and localities that are best situated. They're the most nimble to respond more quickly to their citizens' needs.
And that's typically it. Usually the first line response does come from state and local governments, right?
That's right. The classic example, FEMA will say prepare for 3 days before we can get there. And if you think about Hurricane Ian in Florida, and Governor Ron DeSantis there was a bridge that was cut off from the mainland, and Florida was able to rebuild that within 3 days. FEMA wouldn't have even have been there for at least that long. So that's a great example of how quickly states can respond themselves, but best know also what they need.
All right, Laura Rice, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
For more, let's
Okay, so that's where ICE has been up to. There's actually laws on the books, case laws, precedents have been set, and they're following those. And so when people say that these people didn't get due process, I'm going to go over what that process actually is after we watch this last video. There's Kristi Noem, and we're talking about Operation Tidal Wave. It's and trying to understand this. None of these things are meant to be inhumane. They're not meant to be inhumane. It seems that way on the surface, but that's just not the case. These people are provided for before they're asked to leave the country, before they're made to leave the country, before they're sent to a prison for crimes they committed now. Understand that. And we'll go over the due process here in a bit. But they did go through due process. They were found guilty of crimes. They were sentenced to prison by lawful agencies. Understand that. The police officers, they don't send people to prison. They put people in jail pending an arraignment for a trial for due process. And they go through the due process in the court. The court decides whether that person goes to prison or not. Now, that is non-immigration court. Immigration court. Key word in that phrase is court. It's an actual legal court. If a person goes to immigration court and they are found guilty of things that will get them kicked out of this country, or if they are in the country illegally misbehaving, then that court has the lawful power to pass judgment on them, and that judgment is to say they have to leave the country. So understand this: immigration court is a court. It's part of the legal system. It's just another facet of it. And immigration judges are, well, interesting people in their own. Now, there are times when ICE agents, when they find compelling enough evidence, can file for an order of removal. Okay, they can't just run up, grab somebody off the street and say, quick, write up an order of removal and let's get them out of here. It doesn't work like that. There's paperwork that has to be filed. There's a process that has to be followed. And you can't kick somebody out of this country legally if you didn't follow the process. So these people that are being kicked out of the country do have process. And like I say, we'll go over that in a bit. But let's see what Kristi Noem's up to. Hate that music. Oof.
In a major crackdown, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Miami and Florida agencies arrested nearly 800 illegal immigrants during the first 4 days of Operation Tidal Wave. Operation Tidal Wave, a multi-agency enforcement push, is part of Trump's aggressive mass deportation agenda. As per officials, Customs and Border Protection provided extraordinary support to boost the operation's success. ICE praised the Department of Homeland Security for its strong commitment to public safety during the operation. Florida continues to partner with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to expand and intensify President Trump's immigration enforcement goals.
Every day I get a report of individuals that we have arrested in this country and gotten out that have been perpetuating violence against our communities and endangering families. Today, sexual assault with a child, murder and robbery, bank robbery. We have an assault with a deadly weapon, an intent to kill, rape, and robbery as well. Listen, since President Trump has been in office, in just a few short weeks, we have arrested and deported over 150,000 individuals, many of them incredibly dangerous, that now our communities are much safer. I'm thankful for all of the work that President Trump has done, his focus on getting foreign terrorist organizations such as MS-13 and TDA out of this country, and I'm grateful for his leadership that dirtbags like this are no longer in the United States of America.
The announcement comes amid growing tensions after 2 judges were arrested for allegedly shielding migrants. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan is charged with obstruction of an official proceeding and concealing an individual to prevent discovery and arrest for allegedly shielding a migrant from ICE agents. Former Dona Ana County Magistrate Judge Joel Cano and his wife Nancy Cano were charged with evidence tampering amid allegations they harbored a member of Venezuela's violent Tren de Aragua gang, Christian Ortega Lopez.
We're going to treat everybody the same. Regardless of who they are, the laws will apply equally, and we will have the scales of justice back in place, but also understands that this may be difficult for some families, that families will be impacted, that some that have been in our country for many, many years, and we'll be able to stand there with the perspective of a wife and a mom and a grandma and communicate that to people, that we're going to work to make sure that we're not picking and choosing winners, but we're going to do this in a way that makes sense, and we're going to work with the American people to give their country back. I'm thankful he trusted me with that, and the mission of this department is to protect the country and to secure it within its borders and the homeland with integrity and with honesty. And what that means is we're going to be transparent. We're going to talk to you different than we ever have before. We're going to be more accountable. When you say things to me, we're going to run the traps on it and make sure you're telling me the truth. We're going to evaluate your contracts. We're going to make sure you're not taking more money of the taxpayers that isn't supposed to be spent, but that it's going to be deployed in a much more efficient way that's going to benefit the men and women who are on the front lines, and that we're going to have their backs finally. We're letting them do their jobs. And what I'd like to do is have every law enforcement officer in this room stand up. CBP, ICE, HSI, Coast Guard, law enforcement, federal, local, and state, stand up and let us give you a round of applause and thank you for all that you've done to protect our country. President Trump wants me to thank you for what you do, and he wants you to be safe, and he wants to make sure that you know that he will help you do your jobs. and is incredibly grateful that you still want to do your jobs after what he says was the poor leadership and the train wreck of Joe Biden hitting this country. So we're going to fix it and help you do your jobs, and I hope that's encouraging to all of you. During one of my trips down to the border when I was still serving as governor, I remember one of our Border Patrol officers and agents saying to me, listen, there's just no consequences for crossing our border. And without consequences, there is no enforcement and there is no law. The law doesn't matter. And that impacted me in such a way that it affects every way that I do this job today. There has to be consequences for breaking our laws. And there has to be consequences, and there has to be enforcement and prosecution. We are going to use every single tool that we have, and I'll run through a couple of those tools that I think are going to change the way that we operate in this country, and that it'll be ways that industry can partner with us. We're using new technologies in ways that we never have before. We're going to deploy new technologies not only at the border, but at our ports of entry and in our interior to make sure that we're sharing information with other agencies at all levels. And we're also going to be sharing more information, biometrics, DNA testing, and being much more efficient, working to get everybody more authorities that they need to be able to take action in every single interdiction that we have. That all of our agents can go in there and deal with what they face, whether it may be drugs or trafficking or breaking of laws that would be impacting a community in different ways that they just weren't empowered to do before. And we'll be deploying and partnering with industry to be more efficient and accountable to make sure that we're making the best use of our time. The CBP One app is one app that was deployed during the last presidential administration that we have completely changed. It was interesting, I did ask the federal government if we took the CBP One app and shut it down on day one, which we did do, how long would it take us to develop an app that would deport people and allow people to self-deport? And the federal government told me, boy, that's probably going to take us 4 to 6 months. So I went to Elon and his guys, and they said, we can do that in 24 hours. And in 24 hours, we had the CBP Home app up that allows individuals to go in there and send them messages from the federal government that says, if you are here illegally now, go home. And soon it will be that you can get on that app, and it'll be not only should you go home right now, but we will help you buy your plane ticket and your travel documents so that you can go today. We are, for the first time since World War II, enforcing the Alien Registration Act. The Alien Registration Act says that if you're in this country for longer than 30 days illegally, you must register with the federal government. And when those 30 days are up, and if you haven't done that, now we can criminally charge you. And we can go in and take you out of your home and deport you out of this country. And every day that you overstay, you are subject to up to $1,000 fine, and that you will be in violation of that. And when we deport you, you may never be allowed back into the United States again. But if you self-deport, and if you leave now and you use that app and you work with us to take you home, you may get the chance to come back and avoid those fines. If you think about people that have been in this country for years, that could be financially devastating to them with those fines and consequences. And that is why we are encouraging people to make sure that we're sending the message out that they need to register, self-deport, and get the opportunity to come back again. We'll have to definitely build out our immigration judges and our immigration courts to facilitate that, but that is something President Trump is definitely focused on making sure we have the resources to do. We also are working hard on enforcing the Alien Enemies Act, which I'm sure you saw the Supreme Court made a decision on yesterday. And we are going to continue to use that to deport the worst of the worst out of our communities and make sure they're facing consequences in their home countries for the actions that they've taken to be involved in gangs that are now foreign terrorist organizations, thanks to the designation that President Trump has given us. We'll continue to go after those with final removal orders and make sure that they are taken out and flown out of this country. And I'm so thankful to our fantastic Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who has facilitated this with dozens of countries and making sure we have the travel documents we need to get people home. We need the infrastructure and the detention centers to hold people, but we are sweeping up individuals, and we're getting that infrastructure in place and putting this operation on steroids so that we can do it faster and make sure that we're doing our job more effectively for President Trump.
Okay, now she did touch on some of the processes and the fact that people are actually getting paid to self-deport. Imagine that. You're getting paid $1,000 US to, which in the US isn't a whole lot of money. Okay, but in a South American country, it's actually quite a bit. No. So they pay them, they buy their plane ticket, they provide the plane, they take them anywhere outside the US they want to go. Anywhere at all. Just pick one. So that's an option. Okay, so here we go. Going to let's read some stuff here. Uh-oh. Did it again. Hang on. We'll get it figured out. Come on. Oh, every once in a while this software drops out, but that's okay because
Movies, oh my gosh, I just absolutely.
okay, here we go.
During Operation Tidal Wave, conducted from April 21st to April 26, 2025, in Florida, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and state law enforcement agencies arrested 1,120 individuals accused of being in the U.S. illegally. Approximately 63% of those arrested had existing criminal arrests or convictions.
Imagine that. Approximately 63%. Let's just say over half. Over half of those people were already deemed criminals. They've done criminal things. And so here's some of the people that have been arrested and what they've been arrested for.
Jose Sanchez Reyes, a Colombian national previously convicted of homicide in Colombia. Sava Klishevsky, a Russian national wanted by Interpol for vehicular manslaughter. Rafael Juarez Cabrera, a Guatemalan national and documented Mississippi 13 gang member, previously deported 3 times and convicted of illegal re-entry. Luis Melito Gonzalez Arellano, a Mexican national and active member of the Brown Pride Aztecas gang, with a criminal history including armed carjacking and illegal re-entry after deportation. Aaron Isaac Morrison Izaguirre, a Honduran national, suspected member of the 18th Street Gang, with 2 prior illegal re-entries into the U.S. Miguel Rodriguez Gonzalez, a Honduran national and member of the Barrio Azteca Gang, with convictions for assault, burglary, and illegal re-entry after deportation. Alejandro Flores, a Mexican national convicted of alien smuggling and prosecuted for re-entry after deportation.
Now those are some of the people, not all of them, obviously, but it's just a small sample of the people who have been deported and the crimes for which they have been deported for. Now some of those are suspected crimes, such as belonging to a gang, those types of things. But if there's not good, solid evidence that says that they very well may be a part of that organization, then they can't be deported for it. Where are they being deported? Where did they come from? Okay, well, there's a mix.
Individuals arrested during Operation Tidal Wave hailed from various countries: Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela, El Salvador.
Okay. Now, if someone chooses to self-deport to any one of those places, $1,000 US, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Not quite $1 million, really, okay, but still quite a lot.
This operation is considered the largest joint immigration enforcement action in Florida's history and serves as a model for future collaborations between federal and state agencies.
The largest. Absolutely the largest. Okay, so Now, this is about orders of removal and due process, just like I promised. Here it comes.
An order of removal is a formal decision by a U.S. immigration judge or immigration officer that a non-citizen must be removed, deported, from the United States.
Yeah, that's the definition. Now remember what they said, all right? Immigration judge or immigration officer. Now that officer better have good evidence, or they could find themselves in a great deal of trouble. Now, this is what it takes to get, this is the due process. This is a rough outline of due process.
Here's a breakdown of the immigration order of removal process. 1. Initiation of proceedings notice to appear, NTA. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, issues an NTA, which is a document stating the charges against the individual and the legal basis for removal. The NTA is filed with the immigration court and served to the non-citizen. 2. Immigration court proceedings master calendar hearing. The individual appears before an immigration judge, with or without an attorney, to respond to the charges. If eligible, they can apply for relief from removal. Individual hearing. If relief is sought, such as asylum, cancellation of removal, or adjustment of status, a separate hearing is scheduled to present evidence and arguments. Decision. The judge may grant relief or order removal. The decision can be issued orally or in writing. 3. Order of removal issued. If the immigration judge finds the person removable and denies all forms of relief, they will issue a formal order of removal. 4. Appeals process, if applicable. The individual may appeal the judge's decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals, BIA, within 30 days. If the BIA denies the appeal, further appeals can be made to the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals and possibly the U.S. Supreme Court, though this is rare. 5. Final order of removal. Once appeals are exhausted or the deadline to appeal passes, the order becomes final. At this point, DHS can take action to remove the person from the U.S. 6. Removal or supervision. Actual removal. DHS arranges for the physical deportation of the individual. Order of supervision. If removal is not immediately possible, due to country conditions, lack of travel documents, etc., the person may be released under supervision. Voluntary departure. In some cases, individuals may be allowed to leave the U.S. voluntarily instead of being forcibly removed. 7. Consequences of a removal order. A bar on re-entry to the U.S., commonly 5, 10, or 20 years or permanently, depending on the case. Potential detention before or after the order is issued. Impact on future immigration benefits or relief. If you're facing or helping someone with a removal order, it's highly recommended to consult a qualified immigration attorney to explore legal options and rights.
Options and rights. Now, through this entire process, they are offered a whole boatload of options. They are. Now, so it's not like they're just completely being railroaded out. That's not happening. There's actually a great deal of process, as you can see.
As of March 2025, U.S. immigration courts have granted relief from removal to approximately 19,980 individuals in fiscal year FY 2025. This relief encompasses various forms, including asylum, cancellation of removal, and adjustment of status. In addition to these grants of relief, immigration judges have issued 141,284 terminations or dismissals of removal proceedings during the same period. These outcomes often result from factors such as prosecutorial discretion, procedural issues, or changes in eligibility, allowing individuals to remain in the U.S. without a formal grant of relief. It's important to note that these figures represent data up to March 2025, and the numbers are expected to increase as the fiscal year progresses. For the most current and detailed statistics, you can refer to the Executive Office for Immigration Review, EOR, Workload and Adjudication Statistics.
Those are Available online. If you feel like you want to know what it is, do what I did. Go find out. If I can do it, you can do it. You need to know something before you go talking about it. Go find out. It's all available for you online and it's free. No charge. So, quick recap. Operation Tidal Wave, right? Over half of the people that have been arrested are already deemed through due process as criminals. They're already decided by the courts to be criminals. That's important. And they're arrested for crimes like homicide, vehicular manslaughter, being a member of MS-13, being a Brown Pride Aztecas gang member, armed hijacking, or armed carjacking, suspected member 18th Street Gang. And this sounds kind of like something out of an episode of the Barrio Boys, if you've ever seen the black and white movies of Barrio Boys. But it's absolutely a factual gang, and they're ruthless. They're almost as bad as MS-13 themselves. But now the member of the Barrio Azteca gang, that's another really bad one. Assault, burglary. And then alien smuggling also come from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela, and El Salvador. A great many of them, anyway. Some of them do also come from China and some Middle Eastern countries. Now the notice to appear, the NTA, is presented to the non-citizen. All right. Now that's after process. Now that's after the case has been reviewed, and they're given this. Here's a notice, right? You have to come and talk to us. You need your day in court. All right. Now, if they're eligible, they can apply for relief from removal, but there's a process for that too. So this is another opportunity. See, this list of opportunities is starting to build. They get a notice. Come talk to us. Opportunity to present their case, present evidence and arguments. Then they get the opportunity to appeal if they can. But we'll talk about that in a second. They can apply for removal. Yeah, okay. My eyes are not playing well with others today, so please forgive me. Now, the immigration judge finds a person removable. Well, that means that they've gone through the due diligence, the process. They know that that person is not eligible to stay in the United States for whatever reason. Now, Board of Immigration. All right. Now, the Board of Immigration Appeals says that they can make further appeals. They don't just get one, but it depends on how their case pans out in the court. All right. What was their due process? How did that pan out? So they do get that. See all these opportunities they have. Look, they're not completely without options. But a lot of these people, they don't take advantage of the options. They just run. And then they say, oh, and when they get caught, they go, oh, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to blah, 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 blah. Okay, 9 times out of 10, well, no, I can't say that. I'm going to say a good portion of the time, they end up having to have done something that they haven't divulged. DHS can take action to remove the person from the U.S. in the final order of removal. But you have to understand, this final order of removal comes after all of this other stuff. These people could go through a lot of due process. It's not the same due process as, say, a natural born citizen, say, robbed somebody. It's not the same process because those conditions don't apply. The things that happened in the event that got them there were different. Okay, this person, American person, natural born American, let's say they robbed somebody, right? So this person is American. They go through a due process. They get representation in court. They get as speedy trial as possible. They have a right to a trial by their peers. That is a different process because the conditions that brought them to that point were different. If a person is an illegal alien, the conditions that brought them to this point where they are now getting this final order of removal are different. Different conditions, different process. It's logic. It may not seem logical to some people, but it is. Now, if the removal is not immediately possible, a person may be released under supervision. Again, another option, another opportunity. That's again, another opportunity. They may be allowed to leave the U.S. voluntarily or not so voluntarily, but they get the option to leave voluntarily. Here's $1,000. Here's a plane ticket. There's the plane. Go wherever you want to go, as long as it's not in the U.S. Another option. As of March 2025, right? People have been granted relief like almost 20,000 times. I think it's 19,900 something. I can't see it quite clearly just right now, but now in addition to that, it's over 141,000 people, all right, that were issued terminations or dismissals of removal, which means they didn't have to go either. So you've got these almost 20,000 people, and you've got this 141,000 people. They didn't have to go. Why? They went through due process. They went through due process, and the due process said they don't have to leave. Now, as the fiscal year progresses, numbers are obviously going to change. So there you have it. If you want to know anything more about these processes, just use some of the search terms that I have outlined here as far as the names of programs, people, places, conditions. Look this stuff up. If you really want to discuss something knowledgeably, you need to know the information. It's free. It's easy to find. You don't need me to hold your hand and take you through it. You need to know it. Go find out. That's your cultural thought for today. And I certainly do appreciate your time. And again, if you could, please comment, like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications. The videos will not always be about immigration. That just seems to be the things that people are talking about the most right now, and they need information. So I'm trying to get this information to them in the most efficient manner possible. And I try to be as accurate as possible. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I am not a politician. None of that. But I know how to look things up. How do I know how to look things up? I went and I found out. I learned how. I dug and dug and dug until I finally found ways to get things done. So, bearing that in mind, I want to say, again, thank you for your time. God bless you. God bless America.